to turn
We
your
are now
microphones
live.
off before we get to 7 o'clock, please.
I'll shut my biscuit tin.
Okay, we're now live on YouTube.
Can I just remind Councillor Carpenter, Councillor Anderson and Councillor Paul Sutton that you've still got your microphones on? Thank you.
I'll make it 7 o'clock now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting on Wednesday, the 2nd of September 2020 by Zoom video conference. The minutes agenda item number 1, minutes of the last meeting, which are attached to receive and consider and adopt or otherwise the minutes of the meeting of the council held on Wednesday, the 5th of August 2020.
Yeah, I'll move them, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dankirk.
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All in favour, please raise your virtual hands. All those in favour, please raise your virtual hands. Still quite a few missing.
There is now a majority.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to agenda item number 2, to note the apologies received by the Town Clerk prior to the meeting. Town Clerk, please.
Mayor, we have apologies from councillors Claxton, Empton, and Councillor Dennis has submitted his apologies, but he may join us if it's possible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks.
Sorry, Mark, I'd left it up by mistake.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ty. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Town Clerk. Agenda item number 3, to receive declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, none. Thank you. Agenda item number 4, public participation. Residents of Skegness are invited to send questions by email about any item on the published agenda to arrive at info@skegnesscouncil.org.uk no later than 12 noon on Tuesday, the 1st of September 2020. These will be published within the minutes together with the council's response. Any comments relevant to the council's decision will be read out during this item, but limited to no more than 1 per resident, and a total of what can be achieved is 15 minutes and chosen in accordance with the order received.
Mayor, there are no such questions.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Moving on to agenda item number 5, the Town Mayor's announcements and correspondence. All the details available on the website, Facebook and the Twitter site. Myself, I did attend a VJ remembrance at the Eildreds. You may have seen that on video. It's there to be viewed on the Eildreds. Attended with Councillor Finlay and Councillor Mark Anderson. So we did attend that. Moving on to agenda item number 6, schedule of payments for approval, list of payments and bank reconciliations attached.
Mayor, can I just draw your attention to, there is a duplicate on there that shouldn't be on there. BT payment 6839. There should only be 1 entry for that. It was recorded twice by mistake.
Okay, thank you, Town Clerk. Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was just going to point that out about the BT thing, but I have another question. The names co web domain, you've got one at 1079 and one at 3959. Is one like an email or something, or is it a different name or something? Thank you.
they will relate to payments that have been made for the domains that the council own, including the new Cafe Dansan address. So that's what they're for. The council owns several domain names: skegness.gov.uk. It also owns one relating to the trading company, and it also now owns the Cafe Dansan one.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Brooks. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak on this?
Can I move it with the amendments, Mr. Mayor, then?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Pete Barry. Microphone, please. You second that, Councillor Barry, yeah?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. I second
Thank you.
that.
All in
Sorry
favour,
about that.
please raise your virtual hands. All in favour? That's a majority. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, councillor questions to the Mayor, none received. Agenda item number 8, questions to comments from Lincolnshire Police representative. The question from Councillor Mark Anderson. Councillor Anderson.
Mayor, just before Councillor Anderson speaks, there was some information supplied by Inspector Barnsley, who submitted her apologies for the meeting, and it was circulated earlier today. We only received it this morning, so that's been circulated. But Councillor Anderson may have a view, obviously, on whether that answers his question.
Okay, can I just before I bring Councillor Anderson, Councillor Kirk had his hand up. I'm sorry, I missed you, Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just before Councillor Anderson speaks, it was in relation to that email that we did receive, that spreadsheet, because I don't think I'm particularly stupid, but the bottom table didn't really make a lot of sense to me, because I didn't understand what they meant by saying CPS not going forward, or please, you know, it didn't really make any sense to me. So it would have been nice if we could have had an explanation of actually what that table was, given in the answer. That's the only comment.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for Councillor Kirk for actually identifying that issue that I was going to say about as well. And thank you for the Deputy Town Clerk for actually communicating with the Lincolnshire Police to get the answers that we asked about with these questions. But I do find that the answers rather glossy, to say the least. But you know, I think in my view, and I'll be honest, okay, there seems to be not enough scrutiny regarding the police. I know this is one of the subjects that should be done by the Police and Crime Commissioner, but in my view, that isn't being done. Hence, public money is being spent and not being scrutinised on outcomes. If you take the arrest sheet that I asked about on race hate crimes, the figure that we were given 2 council meetings ago was 86, if I remember rightly, and that was in the minutes. From today's spreadsheet that Councillor Kirk said, it has now risen to 93. 93 hate crimes in Skegness. And if you go through the data that has been submitted, there was only 2 people have been charged out of the 93 hate crimes in Skegness. Now, to me, that is wrong. If it had been another crime or other crimes related, there would be a public outcry at the outcomes of or low outcomes of these horrible, disgusting crimes. And then there is, to me, there seems to be no scrutiny of what is actually going on with the police and other issues that I see in front of me. And also about the questions I asked about the Operation California, about how many arrests being made, what are the outcomes, etc. Again, it's public money being spent, although they say it is no extra funding in the answers. But again, it's public money and there's no scrutiny. It's not even mentioned in the Police and Crime Commissioner's report for the coast. There's nothing mentioned about the coast. And only yesterday, if councillors saw, and I know members of the public saw, on Look North, 11 police officers were assaulted and police cars badly damaged. You know, and this is happening in and around Skegness. And, you know, to me, there is no proper scrutiny of what is happening with the police, and there is lack of communication to us as community leaders. But I will continue to answer difficult questions because they need to be answered, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Jimmy Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I welcome seeing some, actual figures. There could be with a bit more in depth of, what has been charged and all that sort of stuff. But what I'd have liked to have also seen on the report is, were the offenders local or were they not local, basically? So we can get more, like Councillor Anderson says, more scrutiny, so we can delve deeper into these and actually see what really is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak regarding this? I think we've had 3 councillors raising the concerns and on the different issues. Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 9, the reports from council representatives to the outside bodies attached. Environmental Disability Inclusion Assessment, the Tower Gardens provided by Councillor Richard Cunnington. I don't believe the town clerk wants to speak. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I only received this when I came back from holiday yesterday. I've had a brief look at it, and I think it's quite important that the report is given some scrutiny before any decisions or it's taken any further. And I would therefore propose that it's actually deferred to Management Committee on the 30th of September to allow me some time to analyse the report in a bit more detail.
Yes, thank you, Town Clerk. I did get your email and I can see where your concerns lie. Councillor Mark Anderson, please.
Before I speak, does Councillor Cunnington want to speak? It's his report that he did, and then I'll come in at the end, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cunnington, did you? I don't know whether you replied to this. I haven't checked my emails recently.
No, I haven't replied to that one yet, Mark. Thank you. I haven't had time. I would just like to say this report, it is in a fair amount of depth. Yes, it does have some different opinions to the last report we saw. I don't feel it's a time for us to pick this report to pieces, and it's not one that's set in stone. The gentleman's gone out of his way to do so much work on this, giving us prices, giving us rules, regulations, and it's there. I think we need to enhance on the report. If this is something that the council would like as a vision for our town, and this report, especially for Tower Gardens, you'll all see there's another report there for information which has been taken and it's been welcomed by councillors at East Lindsey and other organisations. We can enhance on the report and fill in the gaps, correct any errors, rather than throwing it out. But it's a choice of council at the end of the day. It's there, it's an improvement to what we've got, and it's one to be enhanced on, not pulled to pieces and thrown away, unless council decide to throw it away. But we've got nothing. It's like now, we've just missed out on the town's fund because we as a town didn't have a project shovel ready on the shelf ready to go. This one isn't far away. It needs some work, but it's work that we can do as our officers. A lot of the information has been supplied. So I'll leave it down to council. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I don't think the idea is to shelve it or get rid of it. I think it's just to have a good look at it and just bring it back in 4 weeks' time to the management committee and let's get it right and cross the T's and dots the I's, etc. Councillor Dick Edgington, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would concur with that. I mean, when the clerk made his comments, he asked us to have a look at it. And if you read through the report, it's extremely detailed, really detailed with costings, etc., etc. And we need to look at it and see, discuss it at management as to how we embrace this report in entirety or in part. So I think it's right that it should be discussed properly at a later date. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Councillor Edgerton. That's what I said. We need to enhance on what we've got, not put it to one side. We can all have an input. We can all look through bits and correct what's there.
We're definitely, Councillor Cunnington, we're definitely not going to put it aside. It is a good report, but I think we just need to look at it closely and make sure we get everything right. It's a good report. We're not shelving it. We're just going to take it to the management committee at the end of the month. Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the clerk. The report is too important to just make a rash decision. I'll be honest, I've not fully read it all and gone in depth into it, and that's what it needs. So I think a little bit more time. It would be doing it an injustice if we just rushed in tonight and made a decision. I think we need to be bringing it back to the management when everyone's had a chance to digest the report, and then we can see where we're going.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mark Anderson, would you like to come back in?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree. This report I thought was brilliant. I read it from every piece of it, and yeah, it is a good report. If we're trying to make Skegness open to everybody, and under the Equalities Act 2010, we have to do this, whether we like it or not. And to embrace disabled people, as this report says, we've got to do it. We have to do it. My only question is how East Lindsey got away with it for so many years. You know, and suddenly we've taken it over, improved the site, okay, and we're trying to get it opened for disabled use under the Equalities Act, but the District Council didn't do anything for years. But that's more power to our elbow as a town council, in my view. Yes, this has to go to management committee. It has to be scrutinised. I just wish it can be picked up by the town's fund. And the question needs to be posed to our two board members on the town's fund. I was disappointed that the accelerating fund is now going to be spent on an East Lindsey project rather than a Skegness project, which could have been Tower Gardens, because as what has been said, we didn't have any projects available, which this could have been one. So that is a huge disappointment to me. But yes, this needs to go to management. The other part of it is about the roads and footpaths. And that is a pure indictment of the lack of funding on LCC's behalf for us here in Skegness. If you are a disabled person, it must be absolute hell to go along some of the footpaths and craters that this report actually says that need to be maintained. And I think, you know, as part of the motion we're going to debate later on, we need to actually, with hopefully incorporate some of the issues raised in this report that has been raised.
Thank
Can
you,
I come back to Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you can, Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, just for members' information, the second report, the one that is for information only, has gone to East Lindsey, it's gone to councillors, and it's gone to a lady called Jane Burney, who's part of the Ageing Better team, and they've welcomed the report. It's also gone to our county councillor, Steve Kirk, who's going to take it through to county for us to get that dealt with. So the other one is in hand.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tony Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I completely concur with everything that's been said. We need to look at it and go through the whole thing. I mean, I agree that it is needed. It's very much needed. We do own the park, so let's get it right for anybody to come and enjoy it. But I think what we've got to do is look for funding from elsewhere. Heritage, it's a park, so we should be able to approach them for money, and also the town fund. I mean, I know that Councillor Anderson is very much in favour of that. It's the second time I've heard him talk about that. So I think it's a must. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jimmy Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with everything that the other councillors have just said. It's such an important report and it's really in depth. And it really does need scrutiny. But my only concern is, could we miss out on other funding? Is there no funding coming up now, is that we could miss by delaying the project at all? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of observations. The first one is that the first report does have some costings on it. So I don't see why we can't put it straight into the town's fund as it is. I don't see why we need to scrutinise it. Let's just get it in and let them, now the way the town's fund is being administered has changed. You actually put in all your projects first and then you get invited to finalise them. So we could put this in as it is, this first report, because there are costings there. I know they're not the world's greatest costings, but they give an indicative value of the sort of monies that need to be spent. So I would disagree with the idea of just waiting until management. Certainly discuss it at management and fine tune it, but we have an opportunity here to chuck something into the town's fund before much too long, because by the time we have management and management go through it and agree, we'll have missed the opportunity to put it in for town's fund. So that would be my first observation. And the second observation is, yes, Councillor Cunn is quite right. As soon as we've approved this report today, then I shall send it off to County Council tomorrow, because it's not a matter of lack of investment. It's just they've got things totally wrong. They've got tactile flooring going in the wrong directions. They've got, if you actually read what it says, they've got traffic lights where some are audible, then there's a set next door to them that aren't audible, and you're not quite sure which one's going off. So you could think the traffic light's bleeping at you, but actually it's the one further down the road. So there's lots of tweaks that need to be done. I've got a lovely echo coming back. Yeah, quite happy to take that bit forward. Some of it is East Lindsey, most of it is County Council. So let's chuck it into them and see what they have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I actually did attend that meeting, and it was quite frightening to know that they was pointing in the wrong direction and they would be heading out onto the main road. Councillor, sorry, Town Clerk, did you want to speak?
Yeah, as you know, by the email that I sent to you, I didn't really want to go into the detail of why I was suggesting that it was deferred, because I felt that that was unfair to do that, in a public forum without there being a written report around it. But I do have some deep concerns about it. The costs are far from accurate, far from accurate. They don't include any labour. They don't include any surveys. They don't include the actual process of procurement and the figures that have been given and how they've been given, and the source of those figures are simply not the sources that the council could use. The person who's done this is not a quantity surveyor in terms of some of the works that are required. I mean, fair enough in terms of the planting for gardens, etc. But there are some fundamental and big decisions here that are not being considered. If it was to be put forward, do you realise, for example, that you would be saying that part of the event area of Tower Gardens would be put over to become this sensory garden, quite a large part. So there are some fundamental things that I think council needs to have all of the information on and then make a decision. The report is misleading in some areas. It quotes building regulations, for example. Building regulations don't apply to the gardens. They're the wrong regulations. That, to me, calls into question the validity of some of the other statements in the report. I didn't want to have to say that tonight because I didn't think it was fair on the author, but given where we're going in the direction, I think I need to give you that advice.
Thank you. And your advice is gratefully received, and that's why you are here to advise. Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I still think, even after what Steve said, I think the town clerk, that is, I agree with Steve Kirk, Councillor Kirk, that we don't want to miss out on funding. However, if we get it badly wrong, it will end up we'll end up looking foolish. So I just think we need to get things right before we made ourselves look foolish.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you very much. With that view from the town clerk, more than happy to rescind my previous comments about putting it into the town's fund at this stage. If it's so far clear of the mark, I just read through it and saw, well, at least we've got some costings. I didn't realise these were fag packet costings.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anderson, did you wish to speak? I noticed your hand was up still from last time, I think.
No, I put it down and I put it up again.
Oh,
I do.
right, sorry,
didn't. Yeah, in view of what the town clerk has said, I think it does need scrutiny. And yes, the paper was given. It's not an indictment on us, okay? We have just taken over the park, okay, for what, just a year now. So it's an ongoing project for us as a town council. It's not an indictment on us. And the town clerk, we are really pleased, and I know the residents are pleased that we've taken over Tower Gardens and the work that we've done so far in enhancing the Tower Gardens. This is the next stage, and we've got to get it right. Okay, the costings have to be right. If they are challenged by government civil servants, then they've got to be right, as what the town clerk says. We can't just put your finger up in the air and estimate things, because it wouldn't, be part of the scrutiny process if challenged on the costing side. So the town clerk's right. Okay, we've got to get it done correctly. Okay, which can actually, if it comes under challenge and scrutiny, we can actually defend those decisions. So I want to see it in the town's fund. Okay, but the figures have got to stack up.
Okay, thank you. Have we got anybody else wishing to speak? Because I'm quite happy to propose that we move this to the next management meeting. If I have a seconder. Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it, Mark. But just before I do that, could I just ask, because obviously everyone's with the report and we all want it to be in hand, we all want it to be right. Has anybody got any dates when we would miss a town's fund? Could we call if the town's fund it needed to be in by the 30th, could we call an extraordinary meeting the week before? Still giving us 2 to 3 weeks to get scrutiny on it and get the work done, but have we got a date when we would need it in by?
No, Councillor Kirk, could you answer that question?
Yeah, they were all to be in by middle to late September. That gives the officers and the board 4 weeks to get them worked up for the submission in October. So there really is very, very little time, Councillor Cunnington, to actually do any meaningful work to this, especially when if we're being told that some of the report may not actually be correct.
So would the 20th give us 2 weeks, wouldn't it? Somewhere around the 20th.
What, to have these looked at by?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if it can help you, you have the gift to call a special town council meeting in consultation with the town clerk to get it in the town. I think this deserves that. I've called some before. It's in your gift to do that if you so wish.
I have no problem in calling one if that's what the council want to do. If they feel like that this needs to happen sooner, then we will look at it. But we need to get this right. So yeah, I'm quite happy to do that. Not a problem. We are working well as a team, and this is where we want to go forward. So, Councillor Kirk, please.
Yeah, I would fully support that. This is the Skegness Towns Fund, and there's nothing in it from Skegness Town Council. So, if we need to get our finger out and get a shimmy on to get this done in time, then I think we should be doing that.
We do need to give the clerk time, though. I do appreciate that. We need a couple of weeks to, but.
Can I just ask the town clerk if he would be able to get some figures within the next 2 weeks? Welcome back off your holiday, Steve.
I can certainly go through the figures that have been proposed, and mainly the figures that are in there are sort of finger in the air material costs. they don't include any of the labour. My concerns would be, for example, if you take the paths, we would have to do a survey to understand what services, etc., lie under those paths before any work could be carried out. We also, because of the proximity of the roots of mature trees, we would need specialist advice on any damage that might occur as a result of work around those roots. There's other ecological factors that would come into play in terms of when work could be carried out, etc. That's just on the paths. That, you know, clearly there's a much bigger issue in terms of the sensory garden, in terms of, I don't understand, in order to cost it, I can see what's being proposed, but I don't know what council's view is in terms of, you know, what you want to do in, you know, in terms of the sensory garden. If a very, you know, if, for example, the rear lawn of Tower Gardens to the Lumley Road entrance right down to the pond, if that was used as a sensory garden, which is one of the proposed areas, would council be okay with that? The other suggested area is to the eastern side of the pond in that area. Now, that's used less for events, but it's certainly used for things like picnics and you know, people playing football and games with their kids. It is adjacent to the play park. So I think there's some big decisions that council needs to make, and I need a picture of what you want before I'm able to actually challenge those figures and work them out in detail. It's very easy to put down some figures and make them look as if they stack up, but as Councillor Anderson said, when you then come to putting it together into a proper project plan that's going to be scrutinised by government. We've been through this, don't forget, we went through a massive exercise in terms of the European funding bid that we did. So we have, you know, in the office, we've got some experience of going through the process and the sorts of questions that are asked and the level of scrutiny that's required on them. At this stage, I don't think, you know, this is very much an early stage sort of starting to shape. It's almost pre a business plan type of work to get an idea of the sorts of things that you might want to do, the sort of level of costings that might be involved, and the other level of work. That's how I would place this at the moment. I don't think it's ready yet to be a bid for money, because I don't think council has agreed at any time exactly what it is you want to do. This is a vision predominantly, I would say, for a sensory garden. That's the direction that the author was coming from. That's the area of expertise. What he's tried to do is to incorporate some other things in there to deal with issues around paths, entrances, the play park, steps, and various other things. Unfortunately, I don't think all of those areas are his absolute areas of expertise, and therefore a little bit of personal opinion and guesswork has come into some of those areas. So yes, I can get you some figures based on the figures that are in there within a couple of weeks to challenge them. But is that really what you want? Or do you really want to set out what your vision is, and then we do a proper project that costs it up?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirk, please.
Sorry, I meant to
Councillor
look.
Danny Brooks.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My concern is that if we don't go for the town's fund and we miss out on funding, there is not a lot of money about, so this will never get done. So I think we've got to try and push for in 2 weeks to have a plan ready. You know, if we get it wrong, okay, we get it wrong. But if we don't put it in at all, we will get nothing. And I can't see there being any money to do anything after this year, what the councils have to go through. That's just my view.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mark Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. I tend to agree with Councillor Brooks, what his just last statement. I don't think we will have the money to do it that we want to do, and we will have to rely on external funding unless we put the precept up into double figures to do this project, as what Councillor Brooks was mentioning just a few moments ago. I think I fully endorse what the town clerk was saying. Yes. This is a project that just so happened to start, and it's visionary at the moment. Okay, it's not been fully costed. We haven't agreed if we wanted a sensory garden, although I would love to see a sensory garden in Tower Gardens. It should be open for all peoples, you know, peoples with disabilities, able-bodied peoples, people from mixed race background, everybody. It's there, it's public use, and I want to see this happen. But we won't have the money to do it. So my feeling is we've got to make a start, and if decisions have got to be made quickly, then let's make a start on it. We could actually put in a bid for a starter fund based on decisions that we come together on in maybe 2 or 3 weeks' time, in time for to submit to the town's board fund. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dan Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I hear the clerk's concerns extremely loud and clear, and the question has been answered by council whether a sensory garden in the Tower Gardens would be appropriate. In my opinion, a sensory garden would be best suited for something like Compass Gardens, in my opinion, whereas the green grass space is essential. It's hugely important. The amount of families just sat on the grass and enjoying picnics and things like that is massive. If we were to restrict the square footage of that, not only would that inhibit the council's opportunity to have events, larger scale events in the future, but the whole point of that open space is to allow people to sit quite away from others and have a ball game, not interfere with other people if that's what they want to do. And if we take a significant chunk for a static physical asset of that nature, I just don't think it would appeal to the largest quantity of users. That's my thought. So the council needs to be absolutely clear. Do we want a sensory garden of significant size there? Yes or no? I would vote no. What's other people's opinions, please?
Well, just before I bring somebody in, I fully agree with you, Councillor Kirk. The grassed areas, you know, it doesn't matter where you are, you need that open space. It's great to go somewhere in the middle of the town and just go into nowhere and have all that open space around you and chill. And I think we need that. So I fully agree with you on that. Councillor Tony Tye, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what Councillor Dankirk is saying, but East Lindsey have just had 750k from the government, and they're going to use that for the pedestrianisation of Lumley Tower Esplanade. So that was laid back for the COVID relief and for green spaces, and yet East Lindsey are going to use it for something else. Thank you.
Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Totally agree with Councillor Dan Kirk. I don't think even disabled people like green open spaces where they can just you know, sit and that sort of thing. And you know, the majority of people who come on holiday bring the kids, they like to see them running about. So I totally agree. I don't think we should have a sensory garden taking up that green space. There's too many green spaces being lost, and that will continue with housing needs. I'm not saying on the Tower Gardens it would continue, but green spaces in the country. So yes, I agree with Dan Kirk totally. I don't think that we need that to be there in that position.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I don't like taking out green spaces, but the point is, okay, are we prohibiting disabled people from the use of Tower Gardens? Now, who's saying it's got to be a large sensory area? I remember when we put a sensory room in Skegness Hospital, and for disabled children to use that, especially young babies, it was a small room, and it brought joy to their faces because they could communicate and they could have some enjoyment in their life through their disability. It doesn't have to be a large open space. We can have this debate later, not tonight, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to take up a large space. It could be just focused, a small area where there is a sensory for sensory use for disabled people to use. And that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to see large chunks of areas or green spaces taken over. I totally agree with what people are saying regarding that, but maybe we should just accommodate a small space. That's my feeling regarding this, any case.
Thank you. Councillor Edginton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that Councillor Dan Kirk really made a profound observation there. We have the Tower Gardens. We're taking it over from ELDC. The improvement is for all to see, and I think that we need, as a major asset of the town council, to maximise its potential to the full. And a sensory garden, yes, I would go along with that, but I think that we need to keep the open spaces there, because with open space, there's so many potential uses which would benefit residents and our holiday makers and customers alike. So I would support the sentiments as expressed by Councillor Dan Kirk. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, I still stand by what I've said. I think we should have something costed up and into the town's board. It doesn't matter whether it has a century garden in, and we don't build a century garden. That's not what this is about. It's about getting something happening, something going into the town's fund. So I would agree about the sizes they put for a century garden. I think they're far too large for the amount of space. The century garden at Church Farm is probably a quarter of that size, and it's still very, very popular. People can get through in their wheelchairs or walking, those who walk with sticks, and enjoy the sound of things being blown in a breeze and all the smells coming off it. You know, those sorts of things. It doesn't need a huge area. That is a massive amount of space. But let's just put in something. It will be finalised later down the road, but it's just this important cut-off date that I'm worried we're going to miss it. And Councillor Danny Brooks and others are quite right. The country is in such dire states with COVID. When this current pot of money goes, I think it's going to be a long, long time before we see any more. We've seen what's happening over the road with our friends MV who are trying to run the embassy centre, how desperate state they're in. So will any future money be going towards the arts and culture and things like that? So I just think it's too good an opportunity to miss. I take on board what the town clerk's saying about it not being costed as well as he would like it. But if we've got this opportunity, and if he thinks it is doable, I think we should do it. We can have the debate afterwards about whether we want a century garden that takes up a quarter of it, or whether we just want something that takes up 10 square metres. Those debates we can have afterwards. Let's just get it done.
Thank you. Councillor George Saxon. Councillor Saxon. You wishing to speak, Councillor Saxon? You've got your hand up. Councillor Dan Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've just given the clerk instruction to go away and cost. It's mainly a question for the clerk. Has the clerk got sufficient direction from council to know what sort of report that he needs to bring back on this extraordinary meeting? That's my first point. Yeah, we just need to make sure that if we are getting something in, then the clerk knows what he's aiming for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks.
Yes, I'd like to, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second Councillor Steve Kirk's motion that we get something in. We all know there's going to be no money about. It will be years before any money like this is ever available again. So I think if we miss, it's better to have fought and lost and get nothing than to never have fought at all. So we need to get it in on time.
Yeah, thank you. Still got some hands up. I don't think they've been taken down. So if you've got your hand up and you're still wishing to speak, please leave your hand up. Well, Councillor Saxon, did you wish to speak? You've still got your microphone muted and your video off. No, sorry. Councillor Saxon? Got your microphone? No.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now, yeah.
Yes, I quite agree. There's an old saying, you can have anything you want as long as you've got the money to pay for it. And I think it's a good report for in the future. We can assess it as we go along. It doesn't have to be all done at once. It doesn't have to be a massive place. It can be council to agree what sort of space is needed. But I think we should, as Steve Kirk says, we should get that money in, and then we can decide what to do with it.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a proposal from Councillor Steve Kirk and seconded by Councillor Brooks.
Can I just be clear about when we're going to meet then?
Well, if I could just, I mean, I'm quite happy to call an extraordinary meeting. I mean, would we have time if we called it 3 weeks tonight? Would that give us 3 weeks, or would we be too late? Does that, what, Councillor Kirk, do you think that would be too late?
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, Councillor Cunnington?
Yeah, just quickly, when I did the walk around with the gentleman and our clerk, one piece of land that was looked at in a reasonable amount of depth was the bit between the pond, the play area, and the walk-through that comes from Lumley Road direct towards the cafe. The bit of land really is next to useless for anything. You can't play football on it because it's next to the pond. There's the trees there and there's a footpath. The other bit of land, as you look from Grand Parade towards Rutland Road, to the left of that was also mentioned. But the gentleman that did the report that's obviously done this work for us was quite happy with that bit of land in the middle there. Just a little, it's like a little funny shaped bit next to the pond, between the pond, the play area, and there's a few trees there. And he was going to incorporate all that within it. Next to useless for anything else. I mean, I would be happy to see that on the proposal as a bit of land we used, if we don't want too big a plot of land. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we decided we're going to make that decision further down the line, but we're just trying to get things moving now. And we've had a proposal that we get some work going on, and now we're looking at a date. I'm quite happy to call a meeting. Would we still be in the timescale 3 weeks tonight, Councillor Steve Kirk, do you think?
I don't have an exact date for you tonight, but I would say 3 weeks takes us to the 23rd, doesn't it? Roughly.
Yeah. Which is the third week.
I would suggest that's exceptionally tight, if not missed, but I don't know that for a fact. That would cause me concerns. I think that would be because the submission will be finalised for the middle of October, ready for submitting towards the end of October. I think that's a bit tight.
Right, okay, thank you. I could come up with a date with the town clerk, but we just need to be clear that we're going to move this forward. Councillor Tony Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe 3 weeks would be too late. I think you'd be better with a meeting going ahead in 2 weeks, leaving us at least 2 weeks before the plans are going to be in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, have we got that town clerk that we need? Have we got 2 weeks to sort this?
Yeah, I mean, clearly in terms of the calling the meeting, that has to be the week before that, so that's a week's time. So the papers wouldn't be ready by dispatch, so they would need to follow papers.
Right. And would the meeting have to be on a Wednesday, town clerk?
It doesn't have to be on a Wednesday, but we would need to look at obviously availability, because I know that there are some other things going on during the week commencing the 14th. So
Yeah,
I just need to check the availability.
I could be available on the 16th at night, or I could be available on the 17th. I've got 2 dates there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll look at it tomorrow in the office, and we'll agree what date it is.
But we've had a proposal, and it's been seconded that this is the way forward. So we're going to go to the vote. If everybody's in favour of that, raise your virtual hands, please. I think we've got the majority there. I think Councillor.
I believe that is the majority.
That's carried. Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 10, reports by the district county councillors, non-received. Moving on, agenda item number 11, the motions. That Skegness Town Council right to LCC Highways, requesting a senior representative with the decision-making powers to attend a future council meeting to discuss concerns and a way forward regarding the speed limit on the A158 from Winthorpe Croft Junction to the Welcome Inn. Councillor proposed on.
We hadn't finished with agenda item 9. The Connected Coast Board.
Ah, sorry, Councillor Kirk. Yes. I thought that was all then. Sorry. Agenda item number 9, Connected Coast Minutes Progress Report, lobbying plan by email provided by Councillor Tony Tye. Did you wish to speak on this, Councillor Kirk? Councillor Tye, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see, it's quite a large piece of work that's been done. I think this, looking at the projects going forward, there is a tremendous amount of projects being put forward. Some are very small, not a lot of money. The major project going forward will be the FE College on the business park next to the B&Q. That is around about 15, looking at 15 million for that. Other projects going forward are pretty good. I quite like them. I'm only disappointed in 2, really. One is the Tower Esplanade that is going to be pushed forward. By the sound of it, it was a shovel-ready project, so they're pushing. East Lindsey are pushing for that. I'm still very concerned about how we're going to get the traffic out of Skegness at the end of the day. It'll all come out from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock around those times. And they are all going to be travelling down South Parade to the Tower. Now, we all are aware that the Tower Island gets blocked in the day, let alone when there's a lot of traffic about. And either side of that, there are 3 pedestrian crossings, 1 prior to the Tower, and then 2 on each exit. And that's the reason it blocks, because of the pedestrian crossings. If they're going to be pushed all the way down Grand Central onto the boulevard to go out that way, that's not so bad. But they've still got to get over the Tower. That is a big concern. When I first heard about this, there was talk about a survey done by LCC Highways, a huge survey that was going to explain how it's all going to work. I haven't been privy to see the answers to that. I don't even know whether the survey took place. This worries me. You know, these things have got to be looked at, and let's make sure that we get them right. I don't think that getting the traffic out of Skegness will be right. I really don't. Worries me. And the other one that I'm concerned about is the 18 log cabins on the pitch and putt. Now, the reason I'm concerned about that is I don't see where the benefit to Skegness is. East Lindsey are going to own the cabins. They're going to take rent. They're going to earn from the rates. Where is any funding going to come to Skegness from this 25 million? It's all going to be East Lindsey's. That just worries me a little. But let me just tell you, I do believe in this project going forward. I think it's a very good project, because if it works, the flood risk and everything, if it works, that could be taken all the way up the coast. And when you think about it, we can then say, when the environmental agency say you can't build that because of the flood risk, we could just say, hold on, we've done it. Yes, I'm in agreement with that. But all the other projects going forward are all pretty good, and I'm very pleased with what's going on. I know Councillor Steve Kirk can talk about what's being done more than I can, because he sits on that board. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Saxon, you've got your hand up. Would you wish to speak? Councillor Saxon?
I can't get rid of it for some reason. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Councillor
Kirk, Steve Kirk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things there. Firstly, let's just deal with Councillor Ty's issues. Traffic survey was done last August by LCC, and it makes no difference whether the traffic is going down South Parade to get out of Skegness or down, as it currently does, down the Esplanade. They both come to the clock tower. There's no increase in the amount of traffic, but what it does do by putting people down, entering the car park via Princess Parade, it puts footfall in that end of town. Nothing happens at that end of town because nobody will invest there. Nobody will invest there because nobody goes there. But by putting the car park entrance that way, it's hoped that that will increase the footfall. So that's the reason it's being done like that. The eco chalets are being totally funded by East Lindsey. No Towns Fund money is being sought for the eco chalets. They're being put in there to show projects that are already at an advanced stage and funded, because we need to show that not everything is being funded by the Towns Fund. So, for example, we have Grimsby College, who've put some money in, the Sanderson family are putting some money in, and East Lindsey. So they're in there to show the breadth of the offer, not to go for the 25 million. But you are quite right. The big one for Skegness is certainly not just the FE College anymore, because it's moved a long way from there. We're looking at the Gateway. Including the Gateway is industrial units, industrial starter units, some actually industrial land, some recreation space for the town. They're also looking to put some lodges there, and there's also a developer looking to put 800 houses on that piece of land as well. So that is something quite huge. Obviously, concerns would be quite rightly around what needs to go with those 800 houses, because for the town council, 800 new homes with 800 new lots of council tax is fantastic for us, because it means we get the extra income without having to raise a precept. But then we have the problem of, if these people are ill, how will they ever get to see a doctor? How will the local hospital cope, etc., etc. So that is my big concern. Whilst, you know, a figure of 800 homes is really, really exciting, because we do need quality housing in Skegness. We all know that. We do need a good FE provision in Skegness. We all know that. But my concern would be, building a house is one thing, but where will these people go to school if they have children? So where will their children go to school? Where will they go if they need doctors? Where will they go if they need health treatment? So that's my big concern around that. But that is my only issue. Apart from that, I think to have that bit of land developed, those who have been on this council for a few years will have seen several planning applications that have come forward over the years for that piece of land, and nothing's ever moved forward. So this is a huge opportunity to do that. And it is quite well advanced with Grimsby College and what they're looking to do. So yeah, it's all really, really exciting stuff. I think we should get behind all of it. All of it is positive. We need a quite clear message to government that we want this to happen. There's absolutely no doubt about it. If there is a lot of negativity come forward, you know, open debate is great, but once we get this thing moving, we all need to be behind it, because, as has been said so many times, the opportunity of large sums of money coming this town's way in the future are very, very limited.
Okay, thank you. Just before I bring you in, Councillor Ty, Councillor Saxon, you still got your microphone turned on. Councillor Tony Ty, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I can't agree more, Councillor Kirk. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, 800 houses out there, as well as the college and the campus. It's going to be good for Skegness for the next 30 years. And for the businesses of Skegness, they'll all be able to get off their apprenticeships off to the college, and it's all local. People have not got to travel all the way to Boston or all the way to Grimsby. I think it's fantastic. And a lot of the other stuff that's going on, it's all extremely positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just remind councillors, when you finish speaking, if you could lower your virtual hand and put your microphone on mute, please. Councillor Mark Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just agree with some of the comments made by Councillor Tony Ty? I've got concerns about the traffic survey done by Lincolnshire County Council. I wasn't aware that they were doing a survey. I don't think other town councillors or district councillors were aware that they were doing a survey or the results of the survey. So we've not seen it, which does concern me. I remember when I was on the county council, part of the Skegness travel plans, we did a survey along with public consultation regarding the pedestrianisation and the effects of the entrances to East Lindsey District Council car parks, which actually was the pedestrianisation incorporated as well of the Tower Esplanade.
Sorry, Mark. Councillor Anderson, can I just come in? Can the town clerk mute Councillor Saxon's microphone?
Yes, sure. Sorry.
I have done that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson, sorry.
Thank you. And the survey produced at that time, there was considerable concern about rat runs being used to get away through the town, to get away from the traffic, i.e. some of the rat runs would go into the urban areas of Skegness, which would cause pollution and other issues to local residents of Drummond Road. So there are issues there that which we haven't been consulted about, which does actually concern me. With regard to the 800 houses, yeah, okay, it sounds fantastic, okay, but we've got 3 of the most deprived wards in Skegness, not because they are poor, but it's access to public services, like Councillor Kirk has said, the doctors, NHS provision, social services provision, adult services provision, children's services. We are lacking in all of those services. If we put 800 new units of housing up, that our infrastructure on public access to services will not cope. You know, to me, these things have got to be done properly, as what we debated just a few minutes ago with Tower Gardens, but it hasn't been done. I love some of the projects, don't get me wrong, when it comes to FE. How long I've been actually wanting FE to come into Skegness as having a 14-hour day and long bus journeys. No disrespect to Councillor Carpenter when I say that. On the doorstep, and it just isn't about post 16 up to 25. It's for people of my age and other people, councillors of adult age, if they wanted career changes as well. So that is great to see, okay? But also what concerns me, and I'll be frank, where is the consultation? Part of the report says that some consultants have been recruited, okay, to consult regarding the plan, and they've put it on social media, and they've had a great response on social media. I wonder how many town councillors have seen it on social media. I certainly haven't. Have you, Mr. Mayor? I certainly haven't.
No,
I haven't seen any of this on social media. And it's saying it's had a great response from the general public, the residents of Skegness. Well, why haven't we been consulted? You know, as community leaders, what's wrong? We're not even on the list for consultees. Why? I just don't understand that. When it's our money being spent, I just don't understand that. To me, it just smacks of not being right, of proper scrutiny in the public arena, and it's just being passported to consultants who make lots of money out of things like this, but there's no proper engagement with all stakeholders. and that includes the town council. We're not even on the list to see. And with respect to Councillor Kirk, we have just agreed on our local plan. That is, we submitted to East Lindsey, and we've taken a huge amount of time doing that in public consultation with our residents to get it right. But where does this all fit into that local plan that we've submitted to East Lindsey? I don't know, because there's been no engagement, absolutely zero engagement. As I said, I'll shut up there now. But some of it I agree, but a lot of it I disagree. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Ty.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I totally agree with Councillor Anderson that it does smell a little. East Lindsey, where they handed over the 750k to this project. When I learnt that the £750 was coming to us, I made the inquiries because I wanted to spend some of that money in the park, in the Tower Gardens. I thought it was absolutely what it was made for green spaces. And yet when I rang up, I was told that that money had already been allotted to the pedestrianisation of Tower Esplanade. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I really couldn't. I mean, that's when I started getting a little bit concerned about where it's going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll get the right button in a minute. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, the reason it went for the 750 and the reason the 500 went to Mablethorpe, Councillor Ty is fully aware. There was nothing ready. Had we had the park ready, like I said, we could have put that in, but there was nothing ready. Nobody, no group in Skegness had a project that was ready to go. So we had a choice, and we had a very stark choice: either put in one of our projects or lose £750,000. So, you know, those are the stark choices you have. If you don't have a project which is ready to go, the decision was made at full council, the district councils remember that, and that night, the letter went to the minister. That's how tight it was. We agreed it at what, 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. The letters were sent at 9 o'clock at night. If you don't have shovel-ready projects, then you can't put in for this money, and it's as simple as that. So I don't disagree that it would have been nice if some of our projects could have been in there, but we just haven't got any. As a town council, we don't actually have any projects. If we had worked up our museum, which we know is one of our aspirations, if we'd actually had the time and the capacity to work that up, so it was ready, it sat there on a shelf, that could have gone in, but we haven't. So it didn't. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not being negative. There's plenty of that around already. What I'm saying is, if you don't have the projects ready for when the government says we want a project now, I'm sorry, you would have lost out, and the coast would have lost out of £1.25 million.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tony Ty.
Yeah, could I just say to Councillor Steve Kirk, that there's a lot of difference between being negative and being concerned, and all I am is concerned. Okay.
I take that on board, Councillor Ty. I take your comments in the way they're intended.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak on this? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I quickly come in? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see your hand raised. Sorry.
I wasn't trying to be negative in my remarks. Okay. What I'm trying to say is, okay, that we, the public, okay, this is a town's fund on behalf of the residents of Skegness. Yes. And to me, I don't think that we have been consulted over this. This is the first report that I've seen which has some of the projects in it that have been earmarked to go before government. The first time I've seen it, and I think a lot of the other residents in the town, you know, the first time they're going to see it or even hear it debated, because the meetings aren't even in the public sector. public aren't even invited to these meetings that these boards have. Otherwise, you know, you could actually go in and scrutinise, but there's nothing. It's all done behind closed doors. But millions of pounds of public money is being spent. I agree, some of it is good, but I've got grave concerns, as I said, about 800 units of housing, as what's been said, about education, health, social services, children's services. We're all lacking on that. Mental health services. There is no mental health service in Skegness. All these issues and we're going to build 800 units of housing, and for mainly retired people to come into the town. Would you add more drain on those services? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we've all showed our concerns at that. We know that the report is there. So we're going to move back on to, we've cleared agenda item number 10. Moving on to 11 motions. The motion that I did read that out for you. It was proposed by Councillor Finlay and seconded by Councillor Danny Brooks. Would you like to comment on this, Councillor Finlay?
Yeah. Well, basically, the area itself has raised concerns regarding that particular stretch of road. For years, I've heard people talk in council and out of council that people have complained about that particular stretch of road and what should be done with it. And there's many, you know, sort of decisions to be made on what should actually be done. I think at the very, very least, we should be requesting, like you say, sending off to Lincolnshire County Council, get somebody actually in council with ourselves that can make decisions, not just a representative that can stand there and say yes and no and then just forget about it. We need somebody that can actually stand there in front of us and say, yes, we can make this happen, we can push it through. I believe at the moment from what information I've got, that there's an investigation underway at the moment of that particular stretch from the Croft Winthorpe Junction to Welcome Inn. But I don't know when this investigation was first put forward for them to do. I don't know how long this investigation's been on the shelf, and I certainly don't know when this investigation is going to take place to get a result, if there is a result. And I think we as a council, you know, have a duty to our residents and our visitors to make that particular stretch of road, at the very least, slow it down. 60 mile an hour, even right up to the point of residential properties, is nowhere near in my eyes. And you know, and a lot of people agree that it's just too fast. There's so much development gone on in that area over the years with caravan parks. You know, you've got the circus that people love going to, and a lot of people walk to it and have to cross the road. With cars zipping up and down there at 60 mile an hour, it's crazy. There's bus stops one side the road or the other, and you have to get to one or the other depending which side the road you're on. There's so many obstacles in that stretch of road. That traffic has got to be slowed down in my eyes, and that's why I think we should send Lincolnshire County Council the letter.
Okay, that's the proposal. And if you remember, Councillor Finlay, I did ask at the last meeting or the one before for Councillor Kirk to report this and take it forward. So that's probably something to do with it. Can I bring in the seconded Councillor Danny Brooks?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to second this. I totally agree with Councillor Finlay. We've had a few deaths on there, okay, spaced out, but any death is too much. Crashes on there, any crash is too much, any injury is too much. So I think with the development that's going on there, to be fair to the people that are developing there, people that want to develop in our town, want to come to our town, you know, we need to be safe. And it's as simple as that. So I totally agree with Councillor Finlay, and I'm quite happy to second this. I will reserve my right to speak after the debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bring Councillor Carpenter in, because I do know that he's been lobbying for this for quite some time.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. What it is, over obviously the last council term, this was brought up on many occasions. I mean, there's been 2 fatal accidents. One recently, one a couple of years ago down there. 2 young girls lost their lives. There's been numerous small accidents at the grain store industrial estate coming in and out of there, which obviously nobody knows the true number. We've just recently seen the bus stop just outside Skegness at the caravan park in planning is going to be taken away, which means anybody who catches public transport out of Skegness have got to get off the bus at the Welcome or stay on all the way to the grain store industrial estate and walk back along that main road at 60 miles an hour. We've seen more caravan parks going in that area, as just been mentioned. We've got the circus, and we've been pushing really to drop it for 40 miles an hour from Middlemarsh Crossroads. And I think unless this is done, and it's done quickly by Lincolnshire County Council, we're going to see more deaths along that stretch of road.
Definitely, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. I support the motion, fully support the motion. Yes, it needs to go forward, the motion to Lincolnshire County Council, and yes, it has to go to the Planning and Regulation Subcommittee at Lincolnshire County Council. In my view, when I was a county councillor, there wasn't any, because what the criteria is to look at developments along a road. And if you have the developments along that road and fatalities as well, therefore it should, speed reduction should come in, or even traffic calming should come in. In my view, okay, now is the time for a speed reduction. There has been too many fatalities, as what people have said. One life is too many, as what Councillor Carpenter said. You know, at the end of the day, this coming into Skegness, I've seen people running to, across the road on a national speed limit, cars going above 60 miles an hour, trying to cross to go to the circus, and also cross to go and to the bus stop when they see a bus approaching. And it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. This needs to go to Lincolnshire County Council. And, you know, this is what gets me, Mr. Mayor. We have LCC highway engineers and surveyors coming along. Surely it doesn't need a motion to see the safety issues. They have plans coming in. You know, highway engineers, even the portfolio holder, Councillor Davis, has this in front on his desk, and he can see the fatalities. He can see the growth there. They should be, you know, doing these things without us having to put motions in this. It fits the criteria. It needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support the motion, and I don't know whether the proposer and seconder would like to see this happen as well, but I think instead of just looking from where they've put on the motion, we need to look at the whole stretch, because it is being developed right the way from the roundabout, right the way through. There's, if you get more developed in a year's time, you're going to try and move things again. Let's be proactive, not reactive. I think we ought to be looking at taking it further afield to the roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Finlay.
Yeah, I mean, anything's better than what it is at the present. But what I would like people to realise is that the whole point of this motion is to get somebody from Lincolnshire County Council that can make the decisions, not to take it back to a committee to go over and over and over again or shove it under the table. We need to try and insist that we get somebody that can get it done as soon as possible and make that decision for us, or be able in a position to command a group of people to say this needs to happen. That's the whole point. That's what I really do believe should happen with this motion. Not just a letter to say hi, hello, whatever. You know, we want somebody that can make it happen.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thoroughly support this motion. I have a slight amendment to it that I'll come to in a moment, trying to enhance it, not to change what it says. Councillor Finlay, what you're suggesting is never going to happen, because it can't work like that. There's legislation in place, as Councillor Anderson said, which says what a speed limit should be. The only way you will get a speed limit change on safety is if a recommendation comes from the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. So that is my amendment to your motion. The Skegness Council writes to LCC Highways requesting that they send a senior representative and a representative from Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership to attend, because you can't have decision-making powers because they don't have those, because that's something else that has to go out to consultation. Whether the consultation is meaningful or not is irrelevant. You still have to have the 28 days consultation and all these things. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Anderson, it might be longer than 28 days. I'm not 100% sure. So I would delete with decision-making powers, but it certainly needs to be that right to LCC Highways requesting a senior representative and a representative of the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership attend a future council meeting to discuss concerns and find a way forward and agree a way forward to reduce the speed limit on the 158. You know, those are the alterations I'd make to that motion. Hopefully it doesn't change what you wanted to say, but it just makes it a bit more likely to happen.
I would like to see that we resolve it sooner rather than later. I really, really wouldn't like to be delayed any longer. Like Councillor Carpenter says, this has been raised over and over again for many years. And you know, the more development, the more time it takes, the more accidents and deaths we could see. So it really does need to be, we've got to be quite firm about this, that it needs to be sooner rather than later. And I completely understand what you're saying, Councillor Steve Kirk, but for me personally, I think we need to be quite firm in what we're asking, that it's done sooner rather than later.
Councillor Finlay, I think we're all in agreement of this, but what we need to do is, are you happy to add this to your motion, the reword, and invite the partnership, Councillor Kirk said?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And is Councillor Danny Brooks happy to second that?
Yes,
still?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've all got to work together for Skegness, and we need to get we need to make this happen. So yes,
fully understand that. I think that we're all for this. So I think we've got the proposal. The town clerk has got all the information. I can't see the town clerk on my screen, but hopefully he's got the information required.
Mayor, yes, I mean, I can certainly write. I mean, both Councillor Brooks and Councillor Carpenter, when they were mayors, can probably recall trying to get meetings to deal with serious highway issues. On one occasion, we were successful in getting some senior people down, but that unfortunately ended when the chief executive at that time left, and those that took over weren't minded to follow up on the work that had been done thus far. There is another approach, because it as well, that needs to go alongside this. Yes, Councillor Kirk is absolutely right in terms of the process, and I do understand that process has started. The Road Safety Partnership have contacted us and said that there is this investigation and process underway to look at it, because they've had a number of complaints. So that is in process. The other person who has great influence over this is the portfolio holder for highways, because unless or what we've seen in the past is, unless the portfolio holder supports things, they don't tend to get done. So whether there's the possibility of both of our Lincolnshire County Council reps perhaps pushing from that angle as well, I don't know.
I think it's a must. I think we need to put some pressure on and keep our foot on it now. Something needs to be done. Councillor Danny Brooks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I totally agree with the clerk. It's very hard to get people down, and same as Councillor Carpenter said, we've been pushing, and everybody who's on the council from before will know we've been pushing for this for years, but it's getting more and more built up. And I was hoping, because it's a Zoom meeting and they haven't actually got to travel to Skegness, somebody might attend.
Good luck, I nearly choked on my water there. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, can I concur with the town clerk? I mean, we've had or we put in information regarding Grand Parade, and the coaches being parked there. And I think Councillor Carpenter, when he was mayor, actually took a long time out going round with Councillor Richard Davis, who's the portfolio holder for highways and has been there for a number of years, to sort the problems out. But nothing's been done. I don't know if Councillor Davis, and I'll be frank, okay, and I don't care, okay, but I think he holds us in contempt, this part of the county, because we get absolutely nothing done. You know, people are dying and we still don't get anything done. And you know, I went and challenged him on air, and he refused to come on a radio interview with me, challenging him about some of these issues. I really do hold my hands up in despair the way that we are treated at this part of the neck of the woods. We get the scraps, and I'll be frank, we've just had the Greater Let has had £26.2 million awarded to it, and what do? We get a cycleway. That doesn't put food on the table for our residents or create jobs. We get a cycleway on the county park, you know, and all these things. I just shake my head in dismay. I'll shut up now because I'm getting annoyed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I understand where you're coming from, because the gentleman that you mentioned, the councillor Davey, he actually denies having a meeting with me on some of his emails, and I was there, so was the deputy mayor and both Lincolnshire county councillors. So I don't believe anything that he comes up with. But as a motion, I'm just going to bring Councillor Finlay, and then we need to move this on, because everybody's accepting.
Mayor, I think Councillor Saxon has been trying to indicate that he would like to speak for a little while now.
Well, as I say, I can see 9 people on my screen. I can't see Councillor Saxon, so the virtual hand needs to be raised if anybody wants to speak, because I only get 9 people. It's impossible for me to see you waving. You can jiggle about, but I can't see you. So, Councillor Saxon?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. This really does need addressing, and Councillor Carter meetings for people up in arms before now.
We can't hear anything of that, Councillor Saxon. You're just breaking up.
Hear
Councillor Finlay.
Can you hear that? Hear me now?
Have you got? Turn your video off, Councillor Saxon. Councillor Saxon, turn your video off. Now speak. That should be okay.
Turn it on. If you didn't get what I said, Councillor Carper, remember, years ago, really 4 terms of council terms before we're approaching this and trying to get things done from LCC. Didn't happen. We had meetings at Poppy's Cafe. We had somebody had got killed, unfortunately. Little girl had got down. We got a couple of bus holders eventually, and nothing else. And the intensification now, it's 3 times more than what it was then, and it really needs to be addressing, and it needs to be, robust. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Finlay. If we can keep this sweet now, come back, because we are moving this forward on the proposal and seconded, and everybody's in support.
It's just a quick one on the investigation. Are we in a position for the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership to give us an update on the investigation, as well as obviously requesting they attend along with the Lincolnshire County Council representative? Are we in a position to find out an update on the investigation that apparently they're doing or on with? That's all it was.
I think we're well within our rights to ask the question, and I think that's what should be done.
Yes.
So, we've got a proposal. There's a town clerk's got the information, what we're needing, and we've made a proposal and a seconder. So now it's time to go to the vote. Yeah, I think we got the majority of that. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 12, the Planning and Policy Committee meeting minutes to follow. As you was aware at the last meeting, it was in quorum, so that's why you've not received any papers.
Mayor, Councillor Anderson has asked whether he could be proposed as a member of the committee, which it doesn't have to be on notice to appoint to a committee, and that would give an extra person who could potentially attend.
Yes, of course, we fully support that. I know all councillors do, because we can never have too many people on these committees, because we all have things to do at certain times, and we need to make sure that we can hold these meetings and get things dealt with.
That would just need to be proposed, seconded and voted on.
Well, I'm quite happy to propose that myself, and Councillor Ty's coming in.
Yes, I was going to propose it, but I will second that. And thank you very much, Councillor Anderson, for putting yourself forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 13, amendment to the financial regulations, the report attached.
Mary, it's quite a simple amendment. Currently, we pay out petty cash for small expenditure incurred by staff. What we're finding is with the cafe, sometimes deliveries don't turn up, or an item's missing, and it means that they have to be purchased locally, and then the person refunded. What we're finding is that we normally carry a balance, a fairly small balance on petty cash, and it means that we're getting through it rather quickly, and then we're having to keep going to the bank to refund. It would be better if we can just reimburse directly into the employees' bank accounts by way of an expense. It will be recorded in a similar way to other electronic payments, and it just means that we don't have to keep dipping into the petty cash and reimbursing it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dankirk.
I'm happy to propose that we support the clerk's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Seconded.
Okay, Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would have just said I'm quite happy for the proposal to be put forward. I would have just said, though, have we not got or could we not get a debit card that saves any purchasing done by the staff? At the end of the day, everything's going contactless now. Even I'm having to use contactless now, or bank cards. For the small amounts that we're talking, can we not get a debit card that could be used direct at the council's bank? Thank you.
I would be against that myself, but Councillor Danny Brooks, please. Sorry, Town Clerk, did you want to speak first?
Mayor, I would say the problem is that we've got quite a large number of staff, and sometimes it's fairly recent members of staff, or part-time staff, or even council staff who might pick up some milk, for example, on the way in, or some flour or something like that. I wouldn't be personally, because I would be responsible as responsible finance officer, I wouldn't be comfortable with the larger items on online items, but these are for the more minor investments, as I say, things like flour and such like, that just don't turn up on the day on a delivery.
Oh, that's fine then, Clark. Thank you.
We fully understand. We wouldn't want to go down that route of sharing cards, because it'll only get lost. Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was just about to say the same. If there are any small amounts, is there a limit set that they can spend, or if it's only for small amounts, there should be a limit, really? But yeah, a card I don't think would be a good idea. I wouldn't be supporting a debit card for the staff.
Yeah. Providing we have the receipts, then it's all there to be seen. It's all quite clear. So we've had it proposed and seconded. Have we? Yeah. Councillor Dankirk proposed to move it. Did Councillor Anderson second it? I think. And all in favour, then please show. That's carried, Town Clerk. Thank you. Agenda item number 14, the allotment deposits report attached to consider introducing a deposit of £50 on newly let allotments. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Read the report. It's what we asked the town clerk to do. Like his recommendation, so I'm just moving it for approval.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yes, seconded.
Thank you. All in favour, please show. Again, that's carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 15, COVID risk assessment for community hall use attached to approve and or otherwise the draft risk assessment for the community hall use. Councillor, Councillor Dan Kirk. Sorry.
I think the report's quite clear and extensive. I'm happy that we adopt the policy, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else willing to come?
Yes, seconded.
Okay, thank you. So you've got the proposal and seconder. All in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before you go on, can I ask the town clerk when this will be revisited?
Yes, of course, Councillor.
Advice is changing virtually daily, and I wonder if the town clerk had a way of reviewing it and bringing it to management or whatever when those changes happen.
Okay, thank you. Town clerk.
Yes, I mean, we're constantly reviewing our risk assessments, and as you say, sometimes the advice changes and then changes back again within hours. So it's hard to keep on top of it sometimes. But yes, we are regularly reviewing this. The reason from bringing it to council is really as the starting point. Display these, we give them out to those that might wish to use the hall, and if there is a significant change, I mean, if it's a minor change, then we'll probably just roll that up into some future report. But if there's a significant change, we'll bring it back for further approval.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor Burnham.
No, sorry, Matt, I thought we were going for the vote.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Sorry, proposed and seconded. Go to the vote then.
Sorry, I've got my hand raised again.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Town Clerk. I'd like it to go a little bit further than that. I would like to see it at the moment as a standing item on management, even if it's to report no change. I think we're in such new territory that none of us are familiar with, and I would hate to think that anything slipped us by. So that would be my proposal, that as a risk assessment for such an important area, such a huge wealth generator for this town council we were helping, that it would be a standing item and you would just say no change or a change has been made at line 16 because of.
Yeah, I'd like to second Councillor Kirk on that, Mr. Mayor.
Mary, again, risks always go to management as part of the quarterly agenda. We've got a rather significant number of these now in place. I mean, clearly there's one for the cafe, there's one for the hall, there's one for the offices, there's one for the Tower Gardens workers, there's one for the grass cutting team, there's one for the cemetery team, there's one for, you know, on and on and on and on, use of vehicles, etc., etc. So as I say, these form part of the council's risk management systems, which are reported to management quarterly. We can report them more frequently, but my concern would be that we're generating quite a lot of paperwork at that point, you know, with no real impact unless there is a significant change. But I mean, if that's what council wants, then I mean, some months it might have to be the council rather than management if there isn't a management in a particular month.
Okay, Councillor Ty.
Yes, while the town clerk is on about risk assessments, has he got one for the Jolly Fisherman as yet? As he knows that we used the Jolly Fisherman not long back without a risk assessment being done. I assumed the risk assessment and insurance was in place. So I do apologise for that to everybody, but I just wondered whether he'd got that risk assessment done yet. Thank you.
There isn't currently one because we haven't agreed what the process is as yet. And that's going to come to management next time, which I think the Deputy Town Clerk has agreed with you, Mayor.
Yes, yeah, we're going to bring that for on. Is it the 30th of September? I think that was the date that we agreed. Councillor Steve Kirk, you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Yeah, I appreciate fully what the town clerk is saying, but I think if we have any COVID risk assessments which are generated with our interaction with the general public, I would like to see those reviewed frequently. Well, no, sorry, I would like the council to have sight of them frequently. You know, if the rest of the council don't agree with me, that's fine. But I personally, if it was in my business, then I would want to see those more frequently than the others.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burnham?
No, sorry, I've done it again.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, can I concur with Councillor Steve Kirk? I think it's an issue of governance here. I respect what the town clerk says, but I think when we're talking about risk assessments, something as serious as COVID, then new guidelines come out from the government, then it's about a governance issue, being us, the councillors, having ownership of those new guidelines and making sure that they're in place. So I totally agree with Councillor Kirk regarding COVID.
Thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks?
Mr. Mayor, totally agree with Councillor Kirk and Councillor Anderson. I think in my business with the COVID situation, and it changes daily, there's no two ways about that. I think council needs to be seeing as frequent as they possibly can, is my advice, and that would be that's my opinion. So I totally support Councillor Anderson and Councillor Kirk.
So where do are we proposing that this is what we do? Is that a proposal by Councillor Kirk?
Well, I said to management, and it's been pointed out by the town clerk, that won't all be possible. So can I say a monthly meeting of the council to cover whether it's management or council, doesn't matter which, as long as we're cited with them.
And I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All in favour, please show. It's carried, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 16, Japanese knotweed on council-owned land. Verbal report, please. Sound clerk?
Mayor, there was a report by a resident, well, in fact, by following a potential sale of a property that was picked up by a surveyor of Japanese knotweed, which this particular household was claiming was coming from Coronation Walk. Because it's a controlled weed which you have to take action on, we had a knotweed specialist go out and have a look at it. What they've concluded is that there are 2 properties in which there is knotweed, and there is also knotweed in a small part of Coronation Walk. It is unlikely, in the opinion of the expert, that it's come from Coronation Walk. What they're saying is it's actually the other way round. The cost of removing Japanese knotweed, which has to be done professionally, it has to be done under license. The disposal has to be, there's a special disposal process as well. It takes up to 5 years for that to occur, and it's going to cost the council quite a considerable amount of money to do it all. I've written to the 2 properties concerned, and pointed out that allowing Japanese knotweed to spread into neighbouring properties and in particular into the wild is in fact an offence. There's nothing to stop you growing it if you wish in your garden, but you mustn't allow it to escape your land. In this case, it appears that one or other of the properties has in fact allowed that to happen. One property seems to be more heavily infected than the other, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where it has come from, because both have mature stems and roots attached to them, whereas the element that's on Coronation Walk is actually much more recent, so that isn't mature. So we're looking at a fee which is approaching £6,000 to do the whole work. The council's share of that would be, if it was divided equally, would be about £1,900. And the experts have said it is only worth doing it if all three parties agree to have it treated. Now, I've got agreement from one of the parties, but I haven't got agreement from the other one. And that leaves us in a bit of a difficult position because, you know, if we go ahead and treat our section and one of the properties treats theirs under one single contract, that almost certainly means that we would be reinfected in short term, and the money would be wasted. It's quite difficult to know how to take this forward. We could, and probably the next step, if I can't persuade the owner of one of the properties, is to actually report it to the Environment Agency and also any other regulatory body that acts in control. It might include East Lindsey District Council, Environmental Health, for example. But there are other bodies that potentially work to control these weeds. But I wanted to alert you of the fact that it is there. There is a responsibility for the council now because it's on council land, and that I'm taking all action I can to try and resolve it as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Adrian Finlay.
Yeah, what I would like to know is if this is an isolated area within Coronation Walk throughout, obviously from Drummond Road all the way through, if it's just an isolated area. And I would also like to know, if we agreed to spend £6,000 to have it removed, what guarantee have we got that it's fully removed and doesn't grow back? Just a couple of concerns, because it's £6,000 seems a heck of a lot of money. Just more concerns. It
is a very small isolated area adjacent to the fence, the area where the three fences, if you like, the boundary of Coronation Walk butts up to the boundary of the two properties. Unfortunately, there is no real guarantee that it would definitely be removed. You can buy an insurance policy, but that obviously adds further to the cost. It is a very invasive weed, and it has to be, even if you spray it with really strong weed killer, it does nothing more than sort of stunt it, and it takes years after year. That's why it takes up to 5 years for the strong weed killers to actually kill it off. But it is prone to come back. So you've only got to get one tiny part of it left, and it can sprout from that and then re-spread. It does spread very quickly as well. I don't think council's got any choice ultimately in dealing with its own responsibilities. We must try and contain it in some way to stop it spreading any further. from the council's own land, but we really need the cooperation of the other parties to try and get it eradicated fully, if possible.
Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to know from the clerk, I can appreciate what he said and what he's doing regarding this issue. He said that all three parties need to have it removed. And I think from what he said that it's like a legal requirement to not let it exceed your property. If the two parties, i.e. the council and the neighbour that are willing to have it removed, could we take any legal action if we could then prove that the person that doesn't remove it lets it spread back into our land once we prove that we've had it all cleared professionally? Because if so, could we go for just the two parties if need be? Thank you.
We're not an enforcement agency, so we would need to get enforcement agencies involved, I think. In terms of damages that we might suffer as a result of one of the parties leaving it and reinfecting our areas, I guess there is the possibility of taking legal action. I would suggest, though, that the cost of that is going to be, reasonably substantial, because it's quite a specialist area and you need special expert witnesses and the such like. My hope is that once we involve enforcement agencies, that actually the other house owner may perhaps relent and agree to contribute towards the cost in order and to allow access to get it removed. There is also obviously the possibility that that person cannot afford to fund that. We haven't got into that level of detail of discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Dankirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Cunnington just answered suggested half what I was going to recommend. We need to notify the relevant agencies immediately without any hesitation. We need to do our part to make everybody fully informed of it. Regardless of where it started, we need to deal with it. So I'm assuming, I don't know if there's a number of people that you can get estimates for, but the longer we leave it, the more expensive it's going to get. If we can't get the third party that's dragging their heels to contribute, then I feel the council has no choice but to get see, there's two things. We could either just get the two parties to pay a third and the council the other third, or if we just get our 2/3 done and then it does spread, then you have then evidence to then take a civil case through the small claims or whatever it may be, assuming they can afford it. I would say get it done as soon as possible, and seek to get a third of the cost from that other party via small claims if needed. We need to get it done now.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I fully support the town clerk and fully support what people are saying. We need to contain this. I mean, I've seen millions of pounds worth of development come to a standstill because of this Japanese knotweed on housing developments right across London. Even in Skegness, we had some when New Links Housing was on the go, when we tried to develop on some of our high sites and we couldn't develop that. Another one is at Sutton-on-Sea, where there is still no development on that site with social housing because of this awful weed. But the town clerk, fully support him, needs to be reported to the various agencies. They need to send the enforcement in, which we don't have, and then move things on there. When it comes to the issue about affordability, I think he needs to come back to us as a council, but we need to contain this. So just let the clerk do the necessary work that he needs to do with our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the town clerk, I think, has suggested a way forward, and I think it's a reasonable one. Not knowing the other parties involved, nor do I want to. I'd guess that what the other one is quite keen to pay is the one who wants to sell their house, and the one who isn't keen to pay has got no intention of moving anywhere. So that is only a guess. So we need to deal with it. We need to pay our bit of the money, or more if necessary, because we can't do anything while it's there. How can we say that somebody's reinfected us unless we know that ours is clear? And if it is going to be a 5 or 6 year program, the person, who knows, they may choose they want to sell their house at some time in the future, and are more than keen to pay to have it professionally eradicated. I think you answered your own questions there, Mr. Town Clerk, of the way forward. It's not a simple one, I appreciate that, but we've just got to crack on, as other people have said, and get this dealt with before it infects the whole of the walk rather than just one little area.
Thank you. So is everybody willing to support the recommendations, what the town clerk has said? Please vote. Can't see if that's carried. Town clerk, can you? Still got people waiting to vote. Still waiting on people to vote, sorry. Can you raise your virtual hands?
Is my hand up, Mr. Mayor, please?
Yes, it is, Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it's carried. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 17, act of remembrance, verbal report from the town clerk.
I wasn't at the meeting, but I can give a brief update based on the deputy town clerk's notes. The group has met again and will be meeting again in the future. The recommendations are that there is a 30-minute service, and it will be around the bandstand, as that's been identified as the most suitable place. But it will be invite only, and the numbers will be limited to 100 or preferably less than that. Tasks associated with moving it forward have been allocated out to various parties, and that will be considered by the group on the 18th of September. There'll be limited laying of wreaths, and they and the temporary cenotaph will be removed following the service by the British Legion. There is an issue about singing, which I believe was raised. Looking at the guidance around this, appreciate that it changes all the time again, but at the moment, the recommendation would be that from myself would be that there's no singing. To have singing would require extensive social distancing, which would impede then on the rest of the organisation of the service, because people would have to be a minimum of 3 meters apart. So it's really an update. There, as I say, there is another meeting on the 18th to start to finalise some of the details, and there's still the issue. I believe councillors, district councillors, had previously said that they may be able to contribute towards some of the costs. There are costs relating to the marshalling, which we're still getting the details of. And there are also costs in relation to the PA system that needs to be put in. The bid has, or the bid board has agreed that we can borrow the barriers which will be used. There aren't huge costs associated with it, but we haven't got the budget for this was only limited to the old printing of the service sheets. So there isn't any budget. So if councillors district councillors with grants are able to support it, and we can get the forms signed and sent off as we did last time, I think the group would appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Clark. We did agree, myself and Councillor Kirk at the time. Hopefully the other district councillors and Councillor Burnham, sorry, he came on board. We did say we would deal with this. So hopefully if there's any more district councillors available with any money, then hopefully they will put into the pot as well. Councillor Mark Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to publicly say a big thank you to Councillor Finlay, who's done a lot of work regarding this Remembrance Sunday. And the public need to know that amount of work he's done. And it's been a great pleasure to be on as part of that small committee in working in partnership with our partners, the Royal British Legion, the Church and other partners, in coming together and setting out a service under these extreme conditions. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Trevor Burnham.
Yeah, I can pledge up to about £500 for my district allowance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnham. I think, as I said, I think I can do the same. So we've got no issues, I don't think, with the funding. Councillor Kirk was under the impression he was okay as well. Councillor Cunnington, please.
Yeah, just the same, really, Mr. Mayor. I've got funds available. I'm just a little bit mindful, though, that as far as I'm aware, there's more experienced councillors out there than myself. It's only £1,000 per project. Can we get around this ruling as district councillors?
Well, I think the town clerk can come back in and quickly, but we've had these meetings, we've had several meetings, and we didn't put it at a higher cost than that, I don't think. But you know, we can look at this in further depth.
Mayor, I think it was much less than £1,000. We're looking at a few hundred.
I think I think we had a figure of about £500 or something maximum, and I think I could cover that myself. So I don't think there's any issue here, councillors, of the funding for this event. So thank you for your report, Town Clerk. And as I said, we've got another meeting on the 18th. I do believe it's Friday the 18th, the next one. And we've worked extremely well together to come up with this. Moving on to agenda item number 18, trees on the council-owned land, verbal report.
Mayor, as all councillors will be aware, the council owns land with quite a considerable number of trees on. Under the agreement that we've got with East Lindsey District Council, the health and safety in respect of ash dieback on the walks, Vine Walk, Coronation Walk, Seacroft Walk, will be covered for a 5-year period by East Lindsey District Council. The original plan that was put forward by East Lindsey District Council was that they would undertake regular inspections and that they expected the ash dieback to have spread to a percentage of the trees, the majority of the trees, and affected those trees to a greater extent within a couple of years. They would be the rate at which the progress of ash dieback is slower than they originally expected. We have had quite a lot in this last few weeks of branches, falling debris, etc., from ash trees which have got ash dieback on the walks. Now, one of these in particular raised a concern for myself because I reported this to East Lindsey District, this one particular tree, to East Lindsey District Council. The tree clearly did have ash dieback. What East Lindsey District Council are saying is that the branch that needed, well, it split and partially dropped, and then we had to have it removed urgently. But this wasn't necessarily caused by ash dieback, and therefore they didn't propose to take any action unless we could demonstrate that it was relating to ash dieback. I found that quite disappointing, because in their, if you look at their report says that a percentage of trees are between 75% and 100% affected. That would place those in a more dangerous category. We don't know where those trees are, but East Lindsey are not planning to carry out any work to them until the majority of the trees are in that percentage buyback. Now, to me, that means that there is a potential health and safety risk. Our agreement with East Lindsey is that there is that they deal with health and safety risks relating to ash dieback. So it puts us in a rather difficult position again. So we need to get a grip on other trees in on land that we own. We've previously had surveys carried out for Tower Gardens and also cemetery land and other small areas that we owned previously. We now, in my opinion, need to get a full survey done of the trees, in particular on the walks, but also on the other land as well. Now, we've got a quote for a survey of £2,340. This will provide us with details of the risks that we have from the trees and identify any trees that need remedial action. This would help then provide the evidence that we would need to take to East Lindsey District Council and say, well, we believe these trees, because they're ash trees and they're suffering from ash dieback, need to be treated by them. And I think without this information, we're unlikely to be able to move them forward in dealing with what I believe is their responsibility. So we have got a budget for this, and in the normal course of things, I might not even bring this back to council, but I think because of the story around it, I think it was very important that you know what's going on in the background. As I say, there is a budget for a tree survey and it will come out of that budget. What I'm concerned about is having to take urgent remedial action to prevent injury to people or damage to property for trees which I think should be dealt with by East Lindsey District Council.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Boy, this is frustrating, isn't it? East Lindsey can do some things so well and then they pull a stunt like this. It really goes beyond the pale. Why can't they just say, yeah, okay, we'll deal with it? Why do they have to make such a song and dance over everything they do? I find it so incredibly annoying. I assume the tree you're talking about was the one that I think got reported to you about 18 times, didn't it, in Coronation Walk? And it was a huge branch which had split right off, apart from one little bit holding it on. And if children had gone and played with it on their way back from school tonight, played with the branches that are hanging, they could have brought half a tree down on their head. This is serious stuff we're dealing with, and I can't understand why East Lindsey would go back on their word like they did. We had the debate last council, and we thought we'd come to a conclusion where East Lindsey were just going to crack on and do it, and now it seems like that they want to play silly people with us. So I support entirely what you're doing, Town Clerk. We need the evidence to say to them, no, actually, that's wrong. This tree's got ash dieback. You need to deal with it, and you need to deal with it now. So, yeah, please get ahead with it. And I think we as district councillors need to be we need to be knocking on some doors, don't we? At Manby, metaphorically, obviously, because we need to social distance. But this sort of messing people around, if they mess us around like this, who else are they messing around as well? I find it totally unacceptable, Mr. Mayor. And I think I hope that my district council colleagues will agree with me that we need to take this up en masse with them, saying you made this promise, you made this commitment, you need to honour your word. But in the meantime, I fully support the town clerk's way of moving forward.
I fully agree. But like you say, we need the ammunition to go there and fire away. Councillor Finlay?
Yeah, I'm just concerned, obviously, I did the delay. I'm just wondering, is there early stages of this dieback showing on trees, obviously, and what's the contamination from one tree to another? Obviously, the longer it goes on and the longer it has gone on, is there like early stages of other trees in the area or close by showing signs of it, or is it a clear sign immediately so as we know what to remove? I'm just thinking the longer it takes, it could escalate.
Town Clerk?
The response isn't a good response, unfortunately. I would suggest that probably every single ash tree in Skegness has ash dieback and will ultimately probably have to be removed. There might be a very small number that show resistance to the disease. And I guess one of the arguments that the Forestry Commission would put forward for leaving trees in place and not doing a mass cull early is that it may give an opportunity to identify those trees that may have resistant genes and therefore perhaps become the sort of foundation for a future stock. But it isn't good news. All of the trees in Vine Walk, all of the ash trees in Vine Walk and Coronation Walk are showing some signs. Now, that might just be, you start to see, typically you start to see the tree starting to lose leaves around the edges. So at the top of the tree, you see small branches with no leaves on, or the leaves browning, and then the small twigs from that start to drop. As it progresses, you start to see a larger amount of the crown affected with no leaves on them, or a loss of leaf or poorly formed leaves. And you sometimes also start to see scarring on the trunk, especially where the branches attached to the main trunk, and you can sometimes see discoloring around that. As the disease progresses, you start to get other diseases developing, such as honey fungus and others, and these are what eventually kill the tree off. One of the consequences of the disease is that the tree is unable to deliver sap up the tree, and therefore it becomes very brittle. And if it's left too long, then it becomes impossible for tree surgeons to actually climb the tree and cut them down. You have to have specialist machinery there, very large machines. And that's one of the reasons why East Lindsey were keen to do it as a one-off job, doing everything in one go. But that will have a major impact on those walks, because a significant number of the trees are ash trees. Now, that was the plan they put together. But if we're now in a position where instead of that happening in 1 or 2 years, it happens in 4 or 5 years, it means that we've got a long period of time when potentially there's 10, 20, 30% of the trees with a major amount of ash dieback, all of which could drop branches or suffer, especially in windy conditions and things like that. So I think that the whole scenario has changed, and East Lindsey need to rethink their original plan and come up with one that deals with the issues that we have today. And picking up on what Councillor Kirk said, I know that when this was taken to members at East Lindsey, they were fully supportive of having, an action plan in place to deal with this, and not allow that burden to fall on to Skegness Town Council.
Councillor Anderson, have you got your hand up to speak, or?
Yes, I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of us who were in the previous council, myself included, we had some concerns about East Lindsey, and I know you had some concerns, strong concerns, Mr. Mayor, about them reneging on some of their decisions and promises that were made regarding this disease. I remember we had long debates about it and the costs associated with us if the burden fell on us. And now, only a few months on, they've reneged on a decision. I just find it totally unacceptable that this kind of behaviour goes on. When you make a decision, when you come to an agreement, when you and then try and passport it on and say, well, hang on a minute, okay, once the deal was done, I'm going to renege on it and pass it, and it's your responsibility now. I just find it totally unacceptable. I really do. And I fully support the town clerk. We need to get that survey done as soon as possible, so we have some ammunition to fire back. And, you know, at the end of the day, we cannot afford to keep pushing the precept up and up and up and up and expect the residents of Skegness to start paying for all of these issues that East Lindsey District Council should have dealt with years and years ago, but have not done, and sat on there idly there waiting for this all to happen. And as soon as they passport it onto us, because they know the issues, okay, they walk away, turn their heads and shake and walk away from these issues. I find it totally unacceptable and I'm annoyed. Thank you.
We all are. Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, totally understand, totally feel sorry for the clerk with what he's got to deal with in this situation. We had a similar one with regards to car parks. The East Lindsey were actually turning their backs on what they agreed. If we've got an agreement with them and we've now got health and safety issues due to these trees, can the town clerk forward to us as district councillors contacts that he's got, people he's been dealing with, so that we can go direct to them? They need to rethink. If it's a health and safety issue, they need to rethink and get something sorted. And I'm more than happy to put a letter in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we've got to be careful here who we're blaming, because we're blaming East Lindsey District Council, but we're all councillors. Well, a lot of us are councillors. Have we made that decision to change this? Because I'm not aware we have. The original motion went to the last full council, and it was agreed that this was the way forward with the ash dieback. That was done at East Lindsey Full Council. Nothing has changed. This must be down to officers making decisions that other people know nothing about. I certainly didn't know they'd changed it. The agreement was they would come in and deal with it. And if they say, oh, they're dying at a slower rate, well, I don't really care. They're still dying. They need to be dealt with. So I think we need to be using our weight as councillors to make the officers at East Lindsey do what council asked them to do. Not our council, sorry, East Lindsey District Council asked them to do, and that was to play a square game with Skegness Town Council. So I think it's officers that we have the disagreement with. They appear to be making up the rules as they go along. More than happy to chase it, as I'm sure all my district council colleagues are.
Of course. Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Tony Ty.
Yes, totally agree with everything that's said. I mean, as we are all aware, we've been dealing with East Lindsey for many, many years, and they have reneged on a lot of stuff. I mean, they did exactly the same with the bid when we asked them to put to what they were going to be involved in many years ago, and they signed it off. And no sooner had they signed it off, they started altering that straight away. So we know them. We know them. We've known them for donkey's years. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're mindful now of the time for the meeting. We've still got another agenda item. So we support everybody who's going to support. We need to get this report done. So everybody to support the town clerk, please raise your hands. And that's carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 19, council income, verbal update.
Mayor, I thought I'd just give you a bit of an update. As you know, at the last council and management, I reported on income. I haven't got detailed figures in front of me because we're not quite there in terms of the end of August yet. However, I think in terms of the car park, things have improved. We're certainly getting more income from the car park than we were earlier in the year, and I think that reflects the fact that Skegness is a lot busier than it was, and the car park has, particularly at weekends, has been quite full. We've lost months at the beginning of the year, so we're not going to make the budget for car parking, but it's at least we're in a situation where we're getting an income from it. In relation to commercial properties, I have to report we've not had good success at all. I've written to leaseholders, and as yet we're not getting a positive response. I've penned a new letter which is a lot more forceful, which is now saying essentially that they need to start to pay up the whole amount. We've had contact from one who has made some comments regarding ability to pay. Obviously, I can't go into details, but I'm not entirely satisfied there either at the moment. Certainly, there's no evidence being given, which is what I required. So I'm starting to up the ante in terms of the demand for money now, because otherwise, time's moving on, and this is a significant part of our overall income.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to the town clerk for the update. I'm disappointed to hear about the commercial properties and the responses from them. As we all know, they have been trading, and it has been a busy summer for some of the businesses. Yes, it won't make up for what's been lost in the early part of the season, but we know a lot of those businesses have been trading since the end of May and ongoing. And obviously they've got a grant from the central government as well. So, at the end of the day, we need to up the ante, as the town clerk says, to get that money in, okay? Because the last thing that we want as town councillors, the residents to know that they're subsidising businesses to make a profit on their while they pay their council tax. That will go down like a lead balloon, and all of us will be attached to that if that happens. And I certainly do not want that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Fully aware, and I support the clerk because it has been a good season in Skegness. Two businesses of mine, rent has been paid on the ones from ELDC, which is nothing to do with the town council, and it's been very good year. Councillor Dan Kirk, please.
I'm echoing Councillor Anderson entirely. I can sense the anger in his voice, and I am outraged and livid. My goodness, I'm absolutely speechless. And the clerk is, I'm assuming, requesting proof if there are financial hardships. And if that's not forthcoming, that letter not only needs to be stern, it needs to have clear deadlines with the consequence of legal action quickly. It is not on for residents to be paying for the livelihoods of, no, not livelihoods, the financial upkeep of these businesses. It's absolutely unacceptable. This needs to be nipped in the bud. The council has been very reasonable offering payment breaks. If they're not cooperating and you haven't had any point of contact, escalate it as quickly as need be. It would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Totally agree with the other two councillors. We need to nip this in the bud as quick as possible. Otherwise, it's going to make the council look weak, and it will continue until basically everybody's doing it to us. So we need to get on board with this. And how long before we can take legal action? Thank you.
Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree entirely with the other speakers. I think it's an absolute outrage that we supported businesses when they were struggling. We said, don't pay your rent, you know, why you're not taking any money, but they are taking good money. The town is taking good money. This money isn't our money. This belongs to the whole of the residents of Skegness. And some of those residents are very, very needy indeed. Some of those residents are in dire straits. Some who have just been furloughed to be told, actually, when your furlough ends, my friend, we're actually going to get rid of you. You know, these are the people that the money's been stolen from. So I would say, not only does the town clerk write them in the sternest way possible, I think we as a council should give him authority to take whatever legal action is necessary after that to recover those debts. And I think we should make that decision tonight.
Hear, hear.
Councillor Tony Ty.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Now, I believe send them another stern letter stating that the rents are due and they must be paid by a certain date, and then give them that to that date, and then send them a letter and you're going to take back the leases and termination of their agreement. Okay.
I agree. So we'll go and support the town clerk with this one. I think we should have the powers to go forward now and start to process and collect rents. Is there anybody wishing to any other button? Richard Cunnington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, totally agree with all the other speakers. And I would be along the lines the same as my colleague, Councillor Tony Ty. We don't need to cost ourselves more money in legal actions, getting this money back. We ought to write to them and tell them that we will be looking to terminate their contract, because surely there's a clause there that if they've not paid the rent when they could have done, then they've terminated their agreement anyway. So let's force them that way. It saves any more cost to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we go any further, I'll bring Councillor Dan Kirk back in.
Just a question for the clerk. What sort of time frame are you giving as a deadline to resolve this before we seek further action?
Well, for those that haven't communicated with us, I'm asking that they now forthwith pay the entire outstanding balance that they owe us. For the one that has made contact, then I'm saying that I want a substantial payment and a plan of how the rest of that, and that would be an evidence plan. I've already set that out previously to them, an evidence plan of how they intend to pay it. Now, when we talked last time, council said that the rent should be need to be paid by the end of the financial year, or if there are circumstances that be evidenced that show that a particular business cannot pay, that may be that they can evidence that their takings are very much lower than we might think, then that could go forward into to August 2021. But it absolutely has to be, for those that haven't made any contact, I think they've lost their opportunity now of that extension. It has to be paid now.
Councillor Dan Kirk.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not quite answered my question, Steve. What is the date when we're going to start legal proceedings? If they're failing to communicate in a formal way, you've said you need to pay the outstanding balance now. What's the next step, and when's it going to happen?
Well, if they haven't paid by the end of the letters going out now, so if they haven't paid by the end of September, then we would start the process that is embedded within the lease, which there has to be an official notice, etc., etc. There is a process to go through. Clearly, that if we go down forfeiture, there will be legal costs because it will be challenged, I'm sure. There isn't a way of avoiding those legal costs, I don't think. So we would have to go down that route. I think at this stage they need to pay by the end of September. The one who has approached us needs to pay a substantial amount by the end of September and set out a payment plan for the rest of it, which is suitable and agreeable for us, i.e. before the end of the financial year, unless there are very extenuating circumstances, in which case, let's see the detail from their accountants as to why that is.
So in summary, just to come back, if I may, in summary, this time next council meeting, we should have either a confirmation of yes, they've acknowledged and we're in agreement, or we have now started legal proceedings in forfeiting of the lease. That's what we should hear come next council meeting.
I would say proceedings, because there is a step of setting out notice.
Proceedings, yeah.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, can I concur what's been said? Yeah, there has to be proceedings set and a timetable set. And yes, they need to pay up before the end of September. And the letter needs to go out saying if they do not pay up by the 1st of or the last day of September, then we will take the next step, and that is to send the bailiffs in. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you've got to force people's arms. Otherwise, they think we're a soft touch, okay? And this will just continue to go on and on and on. And at the end of the day, as what Councillor Steve Kirk has said, I've got constituents, we all have, who can't put food on the table, who are struggling to feed their children, who probably don't know they have got a job, that are living on £70 per week, yet they are subsidising these businesses. It's an outrage, absolute outrage. I'm so angry.
Mayor, can I just say we've heard, so I'm aware of the time, and
I've got one more to come in. Councillor Tony Ty, we need to wrap this up. We're all in the same, singing from the same hymn sheet. So, Councillor Tony Ty, if you'd like to say a few words quickly.
Yeah, I can't understand why they're saying they've had a bad year, because every time I've gone past the businesses we're talking about, they have been busy. I can assure you, every weekend, all day, every day.
It's been very good. Okay, so we're going to support the town clerk. Did you want to come back in? Sorry.
Yeah, just to say, I think it's very useful that you've expressed your opinion so clearly tonight, because I think that gives a great deal of emphasis and force to, you know, to back me up when I'm dealing with them.
Thank you. I just think that with the weather we've had, if the weather had been really terrible, then we could have had a little bit more of an understanding. But it has been a bumper season, I think, for most businesses, and the weather's been exceptionally kind so far. And hopefully, I think the businesses will still continue for the next few weeks or so, and it will look good for them. Okay, so all in support of the town clerk moving forward.
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, does the town clerk need our agreement for him to take further legal action, or is that power already delegated to him?
Town clerk?
I think actually explicitly saying that that's what you want me to do would be useful.
Well, that was my proposal. Do I have a seconder for that?
Yes, you do.
Absolutely.
It's proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show. And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end of tonight's meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're out there watching us and being patient, we've just made it in 2 hours and 33 minutes. So I think we've done well to get through what we've done. So I say thank you and good night.